Shout out to the GOAT, RJ's MMA. What's good?
What is going on, everybody, guys? OJ's Mafia. How are the people doing, man? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the UFC gatekeepers in the year of 2024. Right now, I gotta say, if you don't know what a gatekeeper is in the UFC, we're going to be talking about one fighter from each division who is heavily respected. Pretty much they have been ranked their whole career and they fought nothing but ranked competition, and they've either fought, a lot of guys in the top 5, top 10 that they've lost to, or they've beaten a lot of guys in the top 10, top 15 area. You get my point. They've lost to a lot of the top athletes in their divisions, but they've also beat a lot of really good fighters, and they basically just are the test for the upcoming prospects who are trying to get a big win on their resume. So we're going to start off, in the flyweight division as always. And we're going to go with my boy, Tim Elliott, all right? Now, Tim Elliott, this guy has a very respectable resume. He currently has 9 wins and 11 losses in the UFC. More losses than wins. But when you look at who this guy has fought in the flyweight division, he's pretty much just taken on the greats. Tim Elliott actually fought the GOAT, the flyweight GOAT, Demetrious Johnson, in a 5-round fight. And he actually had Demetrious Johnson in some trouble, had him in some nasty guillotine submissions, Darce choke submissions, was very close to submitting Demetrious Johnson, but there's no way Demetrious Johnson going to give up like that. But regardless, you get the point. Tim Elliott is a respected veteran in the flyweight division, recently coming off a win against Sumadaji last month in December. Man, he is a good fighter. He's been ranked for a long time. He is the flyweight gatekeeper. But we're going to move on to bantamweight. And I want to say shout out to my Brazilian brother, Pedro Munoz. All right, Pedro Munoz is a real one. This guy, he has literally fought no one but absolute killers. I'm talking about Aljamain Sterling, Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt, Jose Aldo, you name the whole resume. This guy does have a pretty lit resume, and although he hasn't beaten many of the top guys in the bantamweight division, he is the gatekeeper because he does have a lot of great wins. Pedro Munoz has been able to, kind of just hold himself in the top 10 at bantamweight for many years now, which is honestly very impressive. Bantamweight is a very stacked division in the UFC, and to see him, still rocking in the top 10, beating some guys, just fighting the who's who in the rankings, it's very good to see. But we're going to move on into the featherweight division. We have an absolute beast of a guy that we're going to be chucking on this list, right? His name is Edson Barbosa. Now, it was a tricky one for me to, pick the gatekeeper of the featherweight division, but I truly think that Edson Barbosa is one of the best gatekeepers of all time, right? Pretty much the way that I would say it is, if you beat Edson Barbosa, you are a legit proven UFC fighter. He's ultimately that fighter that you have to, go in there and fight. And if you beat him, a lot of people will take you serious. If not, Barbosa is really known for stealing a lot of hype trains. He has beaten a lot of good prospects in the past. He's a monster. He's fought a lot of killers. He fought Khabib, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. About 2 months ago, Edson Barbosa fought up-and-coming prospect Sodiq Yusuff in the featherweight division, and Edson Barbosa put on an absolute clinic, had the comeback of the year in my opinion, got beat the shit out of in the first round, and then he came back and whooped Sodiq Yusuff. So he really is that guy when it comes to being a great gatekeeper. He can beat a lot of these upcoming prospects, but when he goes up a step in the competition, he kind of does lose to those top 5 guys. But Edson Barbosa is the man. I love that fucking dude, no homo. But we're going to move on to the lightweight division, all right? And we're going to be talking about my boy Dan Hooker. Now, this was a tough division to pick, the gatekeeper for, but I'm going to have to go with Dan Hooker. He does have a lot of losses to the top of the crop in the lightweight division. I'm talking about Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. He's lost to a fair few guys in his UFC career, but at the same time, man, he just beat Jalen Turner in an absolute war where a lot of people thought he was going to get demolished. Dan Hooker, at the end of the day, he does have some good wins on his resume. He did beat Gilbert Burns. He knocked him out, and Gilbert Burns is a really good fighter, a top 10 welterweight currently. So you're going to be the lightweight gatekeeper, my boy, but we're going to move on to the 170-pound division, the welterweight division, and we're going to introduce the one, the only, the GOAT, Neil Magny. Right now, if there was anybody who I was going to make this video for the gatekeepers of the UFC, it would be my guy, Neil Magny, all right? Now, take a look at Neil Magny's resume. He does have a lot of wins, man. I think he has the most wins in the UFC welterweight division in its history, so he already surpasses GSP's legacy in my opinion. But on a serious note, he does have some losses to, not really great people. He lost lost to Michael Chiesa, Ponzinibbio, but you get the point. You know, his losses are to the best of the best. Shavkat Rakhmonov, Gilbert Burns, Ian Gary. He really is the welterweight GOAT in my eyes. You know, I've never seen a guy fight so often in their career. He has so many victories in the UFC, so many fights in general, and he has beat a lot of great guys along the way. Neil Magny is one of those gatekeepers that you kind of just expect him to lose to certain fighters, and then he goes out there and beats your favorite fighter, and you're just like stuck there thinking like, all right, you know, never mind this. You know, this guy's a gatekeeper for a reason, but he is truly the 170 GOAT. And we're going to move on into the middleweight division with my boy Jack Hermansson. Now, I want to say shout out to Jack Hermansson. You know, I'm going to consider him the middleweight GOAT. He has been in the UFC since 2016. Currently, he is 10-6 in the UFC. And he's really just known for being that guy that has held his spot in the rankings for a very long time. Unless you're a really good fighter that is able to beat him, he's most likely just going to derail the prospect that you were really looking at middleweight. He recently derailed the hype train of Chris Curtis in 2022. As you can see, you know, Chris Curtis was really just, you know, crying the whole fight, throwing middle fingers up to the GOAT, Jack Hermansson, you know, being a little crybaby, kind of like his teammate Sean Strickland. But listen, man, Jack Hermansson went on to lose his next fight against Roman Dolidze. So, you know, Jack Hermansson's really that type of fighter that will win 2 fights at middleweight just to lose his 3rd fight, win 2 to lose 1 type of fighter. But, you know, he is the middleweight gatekeeper. He is that guy. So I'm going to give him his respect, but we will move on to the light heavyweight division. And I'm sure you guys already know who we're going to be talking about. All right, it's Anthony Smith, bro. Anthony Lionheart Smith, we all knew he was going to be on the list, all right? He is that guy at 205. He is the GOAT, the gatekeeper. This guy has, you know, basically a gatekeeper record at 36-18. At the end of the day, you know, Anthony Smith is one of the best gatekeepers in UFC history, you know, just like he's one of the best fighters of all time on paper. I truly do respect this man. He is the type of fighter to beat all the scrubs in the light heavyweight division and lose to everybody in the top 5. And just lose to all the best upcoming prospects. He just got brutally knocked out by Khalil Roundtree, which is very unfortunate, but you are going to make the list for the light heavyweight gatekeeper GOAT, Anthony Smith. But we're going to move on into the big boy division, the heavyweight division. And I was thinking for a while, you know, I might put Alexander Volkov, you know, as the gatekeeper. You know, he's a pretty good fighter, and you really have to get past him to be something in the division. But I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis. Now, I think this is a justified pick. I think Derrick Lewis, you know, he really is the gatekeeper of the heavyweight division, all right? He has a lot of losses to, you know, a lot of random people, but he also has some amazing wins, right? He knocked out Curtis Blades, he beat Francis Ngannou. The man does have a pretty respectable resume. As of recently, though, Derrick Lewis has unfortunately gone on a bit of a skid. He got knocked out by Tai Tuivasa, lost to Cyril Gane. You know, he lost to Sergey Spivak. He was on a 3-fight losing streak at one point. But the point of being a gatekeeper, man, is shutting down these prospects who are trying to make it into the rankings. And in his last fight, when no one expected him to, he brutally knocked out Marco Sergio de Lima with a flying knee straight in the first round. Just fucking beat his ass, sent him back out of the top 15. An absolutely inspirational performance by Derrick Lewis, solidifying himself as the heavyweight gatekeeper. But guys, that was my list for the UFC gatekeepers in 2024. Guys, I want to say, if you have any different options, if you would put any different fighters on this list, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching the video. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. I got a bunch of shit bringing, or dropping if I would say. But until then, man, take care, my brothers. Oos.
Shout out to the GOAT, RJ's MMA. What's good?